Wow, finding success partners. Well, it's a non-negotiable for me. I think that when you're in the space of working in with strengths, I think finding success partners that lift each other up is paramount to success.
When I think about the partnerships, it's really about having that person who stands in your blind spot because that's
Yep.
what's really going to help you be well-rounded is having those partnerships.
Hi, and welcome to the Thoughtful Talent Show. I'm Jen Werner of Jen Werner Coaching.
And I'm Chad Ahern of Talent Teams Consulting.
This season, we're welcoming fellow coaches back to the show to explore how people can move beyond naming and claiming their talents to start to aim their talents. We're calling this season Strengths Applied. And today, our topic is finding success partners. I'm super excited because we have another returning guest. And if you have been a longtime listener of the show, you will recognize his voice immediately. Michael Stafford, coming to us from Ireland. He is the principal coach at the chapter coach, as well as a senior partner at Futureneers. Michael, welcome back and tell us your top five.
Thanks for having me, guys. Lovely to be here again. My top five are maximizer, input, individualization, relator, and harmony.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here, Michael. I
You're
have the
welcome.
pleasure of introducing our other guest, and she is a first-time guest with us. I'm so thrilled she was able to join us. Jen Pasquale is the learning architect, facilitator, and certified coach at her own company, Lead with Curiosity. I love that as a fellow learner. Jen, what are your top five?
Thanks, Chad. Thanks for having me. So I start with restorative, relator, strategic, intellection, and analytical.
Nice.
Excellent. Fellow analytical on the show. That's my number five as well as your number five. So I find that a fun thing. So Jen, why are we talking about success partners today?
I think, Chad, that coming off of the learning styles episode, I love that we're closing this season with these success partners. I think it's a powerful reminder is that while we can do a lot of things on our own, we're not really meant to do everything alone. As strengths coaches, I think it's made even more clear to us that our greatest growth and capacities come through our collaborations with others. My hope really is that this episode can inspire our listeners to look around and intentionally connect with people that they think may have strengths that complement them or can help them in their success or where they can help others with their own success. So hopefully this episode helps you discover, you, our listeners, helps you discover who that might be for you. Now, Chad, I would love to know, I'm assuming that I kind of covered it all, but is there anything you'd like to add? And do you have stats for us?
So the only thing I will add is that I'm thrilled about doing this episode because I valued our strengths partnership. And I am hoping that this episode, we can touch on a little bit of what has made us successful. I know we've got two great guests, Michael and Jen Pasquale, that are going to join us in talking about that. And I'm sure that they have found their own success partners to help with their endeavors. The stat I want to bring today is a little shocking, and it does come from Gallup. I always look around to many other sources, but this one I thought really stuck out. 25% of employees say they've never experienced a powerful partnership. That's 1 in 4. That's not cool, especially as strengths coaches. Like, we know that we need partners, and for a quarter of employees to say that they've never had that experience, that's concerning. So hopefully this episode can inspire those people to figure out who their best partners might be. I will just add that employees who have at least one collaborative relationship are 29% more likely to say or report that they will stay with their company for at least the next year. And 42% are more likely to intend to stay for their entire career. Wow. So I know we're going to touch on managers and leaders a little bit later in the episode, but from an organizational standpoint, this is really clear. If you can build strengths partners and collaborations that are based on strengths, it can mean a lot for your retention and your employee engagement and how productive you all can be. So that's what I wanted to add. I know you want to lead us off with our first question to our wonderful guests who are waiting in the wings, ready to ready to engage in this conversation. So
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's start off with what explaining and having you guys share with us what has been your experience with finding success partners. And Michael, you're up first.
Oh, thank you for that surprise. Um, all good. So, wow, finding success partners. Well, what's been my experience with it? It's a non-negotiable for me. I think that when you're in the space of working in with strengths, I think finding success partners that lift each other up is paramount to success. Now, what do I mean by that? It's important to really understand what we bring, what we need, what frustrates us. But also, I think even on a human level, it gets us to understand each other better.
Mhm.
I would also add that in any, and I will talk about one in particular today, but in any of the strengths partnerships that I've had, those success partners where we've leaned into strengths, they have helped us be highly effective. They have helped us be more aligned and have a little bit more fun because that's what it's about as well. So it helps us build high performing partnerships. Any potential conflict is turned into collaboration, but it means that for me, my experience, it means that long-term relationship is sustainable.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, love
love,
those.
love that word
And
sustainable.
and I heard the relator in there, right? Like those
Yeah.
long-term relationships. Yes, for sure. For sure. Jen, I'd love to hear your experience with these finding success partners.
Yeah, no, I love what Michael mentioned. So just to kind of, I guess, add to that, I think when I was thinking about this question, I was looking at it more through the lens of like as a business owner. So as a business
Mhm.
owner, for me, the success partners and the sort of the strategic, pairings, if you will, are in my operations person that helps me and my marketing person that supports me because they absolutely, when I looked at what they bring, there's no question that's why we work so well together is because there's
Yeah.
little bits of overlap, but generally speaking, they tend to be good at the things I'm not. And they
Yeah.
tend to bring like my marketing is an example, right? She has individualization, so she's bringing that into the conversation. That's not high for me. And that for that work, I think that for that particular work, that's really important to be able to think about all the different people that might read something we would create. She's already going to be there. I don't even have to ask her to. And so that like
Nice.
her naturally being where I'm not, I think is what makes that work because I don't even have to think about it. So I think sometimes when I think about the partnerships, it's really about having that person who stands in your blind spot because that's
Yep.
what's really going to help you be well-rounded is having those partnerships.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Michael, you're nodding like crazy. Anything you want to add?
I'm just it's I love when people start to talk and when you know their top five, you're going, yeah, I can see why you've answered that way, and I can
Uh-huh.
see why you that.
Yeah.
But I love the bit about the blind spots because they're blind spots for a reason, and sometimes we don't know them.
Yeah.
And it's great to have somebody else who not only has your blind spot covered, but is already there, and you both have each other's back in that regards.
Yeah.
I love that,
That
Jen. I really do.
yeah, that was so good. And that leads me to Chad. Like, do you have and you want to share with us a little bit about your experience with these finding success partners?
Yeah, so I first want to pick up the ball of this blind spot idea, uh,
Mm,
and kind of put a little bit of a different spin on it. I think, there's definitely value in, some of our blind spots are truly blind. You're not aware of them at all until somebody comes along, and then you're like, oh, that's what that looks like, or oh, yes, I definitely needed that. I think the spin I would put on it is there are spots where we know that we are not super strong. So, for example, my deliberative can sometimes get in the way of me taking immediate action. Okay. One of the things, and Jen and I are going to talk a little bit about our working relationship a little bit, I hope, in this conversation. But I now recognize, and as soon as she started to bring it up, I recognize the power of her activator. She helps me move things forward probably a little faster and pushes me a little bit beyond my usual envelope in a way that is helpful. And so it's not necessarily a true blind spot in that I don't see it all. It's that I recognize that that's a gap, and I've been looking for somebody to kind of help fill that. Now, one of the other pieces that I find really interesting is also the dynamic of having some similarities. It's definitely great to have some things where I'm strong and she's not, or Jen Pasquale, you were mentioning about marketing, you have a little bit of overlap. I think that overlap is important too. One of the realizations I've had as I've developed my business and talked to people is that I need people that often have either high responsibility talents or something that very closely mimics it, because I value that level of attention to, if you promise you're going to be on a Zoom call at a certain time, you're going to be on the Zoom call at a certain time. I don't want to be wasting my time waiting around for people or saying at the last second, oh, I'm going to go do something else. No, you promised me your time. And I invested in preparing for that time. So there are some expectations and some needs I have in terms of finding good success partners, that there is some overlap about expectations. And that comes, I'm using responsibility as just one example of that, but I do think that there's a power in overlap, and I really appreciated Jen Pasquale for bringing that up. So that was one of the things that I would mention.
Nice. I think I've if you've been with us at all for any length of time and listened to anything that Chad and I've had to say, you'll know that I'm someone who has not really ever asked for help. And that was one of the things that, even looking back now, I see, especially people with discipline and learner. I give Chad a hard time about his learner, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But I think that the people with discipline and learner have played really a critical role in my own success. And most of the time, I never even had to ask them. I think a little bit with discipline, and I joke about it a little, but they saw my hot mess. Like, I'm all executing with the activator who's instantly go, right? Like, they saw the mess and they're like, oh, I think I could help her. Let's put some guardrails on this. Let me help you, like, with what we should be doing and what we should be focused on. What is the most important thing? And I have loved those people. So looking back now, knowing as I continue to like gather people's strengths along the way, I realize that those with discipline have always been in my back pocket, like right there in my corner. They're always there helping me make sure I have that structured thing. And the learners, yes, completely surrounded by them regularly. I'm married to a high learner, Chad's high learner. So while I give him a hard time, I am so grateful for their learner strengths, because they have the information. They typically are able, they want to soak it up and wring it out on me, and in such a way that then I can keep moving. Like, I don't have to slow down and learn a lot of things that they already know, because they're able to help kind of like boost me up. I think one other I wanted to talk about was woo. I think if I didn't hear anybody say woo in their top 5. So woo is one of those, like, I am not a fan of these big social settings, but I love hitching myself to a woo and then watching them work the room, because I will meet the most amazing people. It's like, typically they already know like half the people in the room anyway. I'm like, how? We just got here. But I love that they are able to, find those sparks in all these different people. And then I have the opportunity to actually spend more of that like one-on-one time with them, because I got the introduction that I might not have gotten had I not been with the woo. So those are just a few of how like I've seen these like strengths partnerships really benefit me in the past because of those pieces. Yeah.
Curious, we've been talking a little bit about talents already. It's great to hear sort of general ideas around marketing, and Michael, non-negotiable. You've got to find sustained relationships via relator. I'm curious about what sort of talents have been helpful in finding success partners, or are there certain overlaps? Like I mentioned, my responsibility, I need to have that overlap. That needs to be kind of a core to some of my success partners. But are there either things you've gone looking for, or things that you have found to be kind of that I have to have this as an overlap, or another perspective on some of your talents? Jen P, I'm going to come to you first with this one.
The couple come to mind. I think in general, what I find is it not so much a particular talent, but more of kind of a domain heaviness, if you will. Like I think I work best with people who have a good amount of relationship building talents in their top 10. Like that's just going to connect well with me. So I'm not necessarily going to work well with someone who's like, lots and lots of purple and is focused on the tasks and the accomplishment because I don't have a lot of that. So that's not necessarily going to be super comfortable, but I have appreciated some structure. So like my ops person loves systems, she loves creating SOPs, like she loves making sure that we do things the same every time. I like that too. I just don't want to put the thing together to make it happen. So like that, I think that's where she and I work well together because we both care about the impact the work that we do has on individuals. And we work well together because she can bring in that discipline piece of it. And the input too. I think she has input higher than I do. So she's very interested in like gathering all the things in order to make, sure we have what we need. And so I need someone who's got their eye on that because I am in the weeds of thinking with my, I have like six strategic thinking themes out of my 10. So there's a lot of thinking going on. I need someone to make me do and to give me a framework to do in. So I think that if that answers your question, those are the ones that kind of popped up for me.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah. Michael, what about you? Build off anything Jen said, or what's your take on this?
I love what Jan said about even about the domains because I have absolutely in my top 10, never mind my top five, I don't have any executing. So I need to work with people in the executing domain in order for me to, for the team or for the group of people that we're working on in particular projects or success partners to get stuff done. But my main domain is relationship building. Having said that, I find over the years I have been particularly drawn to anybody that has maximizer.
Mm,
And I didn't know until I was working with strengths that that was one of the strengths that I tend to lean towards. And I think it's because for me, maximizer is, we talk about it in different terms, but it's all about impact for me. So if I know someone has maximizer and it's all about impact and what we can do to make the world or people a better place, if I know they've got that in their top five or even their top 10, I know there's a part there that I can align to, and then we can make good better.
yeah. So
It's really
good.
interesting you bringing up this whole idea of alignment. It's not so much about the talent theme itself. Jen, I thought you started us off really well with, not just a specific theme, but thinking about a domain of like, okay, who do I need in my corner? And then the alignment piece that Michael you're bringing in, they just seem to be sort of two sides of the same coin of figuring out kind of who we align to, not based on solely a specific theme, but just what the end result is or what I need, and kind of the end result. Michael used the word impact. Jen, I get the impression that you were kind of going toward I need the relationship building, or sorry, you said you find it tough to deal with relationship building. Was that it?
No, no, no,
Executing.
no.
Sorry.
Too much executing without really consideration of people is hard for me to watch.
Got it. Okay. Sorry, I flipped them in my head.
No worries.
But yeah, just this idea of aligning in sort of a broader context of about thinking sort of about the performance. We talked a little bit about this in our last episode about sort of what's the performance goal? What did we all aimed at?
Yeah.
And figuring out what themes or talents or even domains we need to have around us to get there. I find that really interesting.
I love that we're like talking about this aim because I think personally for me, I'm regularly searching out those people who have and not on purpose at first, but definitely on a lot more now that I'm like aware of my blind spots. I am in today. Like I am so about today and not worried about what happened in the past and really not looking future forward. So I regularly am searching out people who have strategic and futuristic because they help me like envision what could be next, right? And then I don't need the whole path. Like so many people want to know, like, well, how do we get from A to Z? And strategic might not be able to tell you that. They're like, well, I kind of see it, and like this is where we're going to go, and they can make those quick decisions, right? But I'm like, I just need you to show me what the thing is that we're going for. Like aim me in a direction and just the slightest push. And then my responsibility, my achiever, my activator are that like jumpstart will totally take it. Like I'm a great partner for those who are like trying to do startups or brand new projects, because I'm eager to just jump in, do the hard work that it's going to take to get there, and then I take ownership of that and will deliver. So I think like having that blend of someone who knows where we're going, who has that like future vision, really helps me with that alignment, because otherwise I could be like, oh, I'll just do all the hard things and be very happy just doing a million things, and they may or may not do what I want them to do, right? Chad, and I think the only other one I really wanted to talk about is my belief being like that like power source, because as we talk about that alignment, I know that my belief means that if I have aligned myself with a good cause, like there's nothing that can stop us from what we're doing and where we're going. So I think that like partners really well with all my executing talents to be able to keep pushing those things through.
Yeah. Jen, you raised your hand and started nodding along with Jen P. You started raising your hand and nodding along with a few of the early things Jen Werner was just mentioning. Care to share what was on your
that I
mind
need
there?
her.
Well, there's two things. One, so the first thing, the reason I was kind of laughing and raising my hand is because I have futuristic and strategic in my top 10. So that just made me chuckle. But the other thing I was thinking, Jen, as you were talking, is I also think there's one of the, I think the beauties of having not just that strategic alignment, but having it out in the open, right? Where it's a known thing.
Yes.
Is I think it creates some really useful language for each other. Like I have high restorative. I lead with that. It like frankly gets in my way a lot when I combine it with my thinking, right? Like those two things can keep me stuck. And so like what I love about my ops person is all like, here's this thing. And she's like, yeah, but is this a today problem? I'm like, oh, right, you're right. It's not.
Right.
And so it's having someone who knows that you get stuck there and understands that about you and can help pull you out of that with one simple statement, one simple observation. And I can, I can do that for her as well. And so I think the value of it is not just knowing it, but using it, right? It's the embodiment of all the things, and having this language for what your value is in that relationship. And sometimes it's to call a spade for your partner because they're like, they're circling in their own little space. And I love that part. That's one of the things I really appreciate with good partners is their ability to like call me out when I need it, because I may not see it. And like, I want them to do that, and I want to be able to do that for them. But Strengths helps give us language for that.
Yes, absolutely.
I have something I want to add to that, but I saw Michael just vigorously shaking his head yes, like to everything. I could see the wheels going.
I just agreed. I agree to all of that, and I think I suppose just to add to the point that Jen has made, for me, that language of strengths creates that psychological safety, and it fosters that really important relationship that we don't even need to lean on the language of strengths. We have our language as a team, and we can just call it out, as Jen quite rightly said. So like I love that when you said that's a today problem, because it reminded me of Kristen, who we used to work with, who's gone on to pastures new. She was high executing, and it was absolutely amazing. But myself and Kira, when we'd be talking on a call, we'd be going around in our circle together, and you could see Chris she'd go, yeah, but do I really need to be here on this call today? And I'd be like, I'll actually no, but our my relator and Kira's connectedness really wants you here. And she's like, but it's not serving me. And we're like, okay, bye. We'll send you a one pager of everything we need you to do. And she was like, thank you.
Oh my
Thank
goodness.
you. So that was like, it was a real light bulb moment for me when Jen said that, because I was like, yeah, I can see how that can happen. But it was that language where she just said, look, I don't really need to be here. And we were like, yeah, actually,
Yeah,
you don't need to be here. We want you here, but you don't
right,
need to be here.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. The point I wanted to come back to, and Michael, you just gave us another great example of it. Jen, you mentioned about making it an intentional language piece. There was let's call it a partnership. It was not as maybe successful as we're talking about here in terms of like truly aiming at a specific goal. But I had a working relationship with somebody early in my career where I didn't know strengths yet. I think strengths was still developing, but this person, we were at an event, and I'm not a huge, I mean, in terms of organizing them, I'm not a huge like planner and, invite lists and all the rest, or knowing all the names and all the faces. But this colleague of mine, we were at a big event, and we were some of the staff members hosting it. And somebody came up to us and asked, well, what's this all about? Or who's that over there? And we answered the initial question. And then she made the offhanded comment of, I can tell you who everybody is. Chad can tell you why everybody's in this room.
Hmm.
And what was interesting, the reason I bring that statement up is that we had an understanding of what each other brought, but we hadn't like called it out. We hadn't really talked about, oh, this is where you excel and this is where I excel. It just kind of organically developed. But I'm wondering, now that I know what I know,
Mm-hmm.
what would have happened had we sat down together and be like, hey, I get the sense that you really excel in this. Could we talk about your Clifton strengths? Could we do the assessment together? Could we talk about our reports? And then kind of go down the path that Jen Pasquale, you were talking about, of let's actually talk about it. What is the benefit of what you bring to this relationship, into this success relationship, and what does the other person bring? And then having a conversation that really calls that out. And this sort of again leads into what Michael was just saying of, oh wait, do I need to be here? Do I want to be here? Do we want you here? Having an understanding of when do people need to participate, and when is it just sort of a nice thing to have, or nice to have
Mm-hmm.
their participation. So I wanted to bring out the intentionality of, you can often have sort of a sense of where you might be collaborating, but if you put in the intention, that was really the word I
Mm-hmm.
want to come back to, is put the intention and have the conversations. That's really key. So I really appreciate the two of you bringing that up.
That's great, Chad. And I think that there's that intentionality is the piece that I feel like we always are harping on, because we're such habitual creatures that it's we're just doing things that are normal to us. And like Jen Pasquale said, when we have someone who does know us well enough to call it out and remind us of kind of where we are in the place, or even like Michael's like bringing Kristen in and her saying like, do I really need to be here? I'm thinking of the mug, like, is this another meeting that could have been an email, right?
Yeah.
Like I feel her to my core, because my executing would have been doing the same thing, as you're popcorning ideas, and I'm like, wait, which thing should I work on first? So I do love that, like, when we understand that about ourselves, when we understand about each other, it makes that conversation so much easier to have without it feeling like an attack, which I think in my younger years, I for sure would have seen that more as an attack, where like, you're going to tell me that I'm not good at something, when really you're just helping me aim myself in more productive ways. So really love all these insights. I think we all have this like tendency to get stuck in our own ways and our own things. Chad and I talked about this a few episodes ago. I think in the Overcoming Challenges episode, we made this nice visual of I dig, and don't realize what I've created behind me is this giant pile of stuff that's about to overtake me, because I'm so focused where I am. And I think in those stuck places, we can tend to feel like we're invisible. And so when we feel like that like whole invisible feeling, no one sees me, I'm not being heard, like whatever that may be, I think it's harder even then for us to reach out and ask for help. Like And we made the other visual of now we've just piled all the things on the desk around us, and literally no one can see you because you've piled all these things around you. So what I'm asking of the two of you, and Jen Pasquale, I want to start with you this time, would be like, what would be some tips or some ideas that you would offer to someone who is feeling like they're stuck, unseen, unheard, to help them find those success partners that may help them get unstuck?
I mean, I think that for me, I think the first piece of that's the most important is making sure you have your own language for where where your stuckness is coming from, right? Like, are you seen to yourself first? I think that is like, to me, that's like the first step. And I say that as an example, as a piece, because like restorative is a great example with me, where I really misunderstood that for a very long time, until I really went through coaching and spent some more time with it, and kind of really, when I did my certification, when I really had to dig into it and understand it and learn to appreciate it, was where I saw it in myself really kind of for the first time. And before that, it was just this thorn that would help me find all these problems. And then it became this really like beautiful thing that could see around the corner when someone else couldn't. And so learning how to see that in myself, I think, is like the first piece, of how, you being seen. And then I think in those partnerships, to me, it kind of goes back to that language. Like, the more you have that for yourself, the more language you have for what you're looking for, what you're going to need from other people. And I think being able to ask better questions of them is part of, I think, how we make sure we've got good partners that can see this part of us. So I think it's curiosity, because it's my favorite thing. But I think it's leaning into that curiosity about other people. And even if you don't have their strengths, being able to know what's the puzzle piece you're really looking for, and knowing what questions are going to help you uncover whether they have the capacity to be that for you.
Yeah, so good. Michael, I'd love your take on that. Do you have anything to add to Jen's, or did that spark a different thought for you?
I went to another tangent, if that's okay.
Yeah, of
And
course.
so I was like, the spark, I suppose, for me, what came up when you asked the question was not necessarily, there was two things. So I know from my own personal experience, because I've got input, now not just on its own, but input, and but if I think about it in terms of projects and successful partnerships I've been involved in, the input, the language that my success partners will use is, Michael, don't stay down the rabbit hole for too long. And that's their way of telling me, go down, but make sure you come back up.
Yeah.
And that's really important, because they know I need to be in the rabbit hole doing the research. But they know I can be invisible and stay down there because it's my comfort zone. It's where I do best. And I'll stay there and I'll keep digging and I'll get you all the research in the world. But then we could have a deadline for a client or a customer.
Right.
And that's why I love it. But what really came up for me as well was when we talk, Jen mentioned about the questions, how questions really matter. And I went straight to kind of, when you're dealing with people and we're using this language, you don't just say to people, that's a great job. You identify so that they can claim it, so you'll say, your analytical strength helped us to see those risks really clearly. Or it could be your positivity kept the team motivated, even though we were at a really tight, tough deadline. And it's really important for us to be better at the questions, be curious around the strengths, the language, and also, final thought on this particular is just when we talk about being curious, I think we also have to balance that with being frank and candor. Because we can be curious as long as for infinity. And I love curiosity, but sometimes you've got to call it and be frank. And only in psychologically safe environments that you're working with other success partners, because you know them so well. So that's just as my mother would say, that's her tuppence worth.
Well, and I love the calling it because, and I've shared this before, my husband watches my activator, and while he loves it because he has deliberative number 1, he
Ooh.
is happy to have me continue to push us forward because he will sit and go, what if, what if, what if, what if, what if he sees all the risks. And at some point we won't move if that's where we stay. So having deliberative at number 4, for sure, I can be those places too. But I also want to push that through. And he will regularly say to me when I'm being too pushy, go activate on something else. Only because he loves me and knows that my anxiety is in the sitting still. So for me, he knows that's so important for me to find something I can put that energy into. And I tell people that because I want everyone to know, if I'm doing that to you, say to me, go activate on something else, because I don't even realize sometimes how strong that activator is and that I am pushing. Chad, I would love any take you have on this as well. They
Well,
brought up some great questions.
well, they did, and both of them nailed the number one thing I was going to say, which is know what you need.
Yeah.
I think we can put ourselves in a corner when we don't know or can't describe what we need from other people. We
Yep.
just kind of sit, or at least maybe it's informed or influenced by my deliberative talents and a few of the other ones that can maybe think, okay, I need to think this through before I take action. And so maybe I
Mm-hmm.
need to think through before I ask somebody for help or to be a partner with me.
Yeah.
But even once you cross that threshold of, okay, I need some help, being able to talk about what we need, Jen Pasquale, you brought that up really, really well. Be curious about from a self-awareness standpoint, but then also start asking people, can you help me with this? Or how do you see this? Where can you help? Where can you contribute to helping me move
Yeah.
forward? So I really like that. The part I was gonna say about what you were saying, Jen, was your activator, sometimes that gets sent off in a new direction, but sometimes the success partner needs exactly that. Like you need to take
Mm-hmm.
somebody's strengths that you don't have and aim them in a way that kind of sets them on an outbound path, but it's an outbound path that's going to bring back new information. Michael, you were bringing this up a little bit. Your team, the partners you've had, will often send you off with input.
Yeah.
Go get the
Mm-hmm.
research, go down the rabbit hole. We need you to do that. We need you to dig for a while, but then please come back to us, because it's
Right.
only in the return that then that strengthens the partnership.
Correct.
So I really loved that thread that
Yeah.
kind of got uncovered there. I think the other piece that I want to bring up is, oftentimes when we're unseen or unheard, it's due to an imbalance of some sort.
Yep.
Somebody's taken too much of a role and somebody gets kind of shoved to the back. I'm not saying things have to be 50-50, though somebody with, somebody like me with my harmony talents might want to see it exact 50-50. But I think the fairness component is another thing that I would think about as you think about what do you need, what can you contribute. It doesn't necessarily have to be exactly, but know what that success partner, what the fairness, what does the distribution look like?
Mm.
And as long as it's, again, shared, called out, talked about, agreed upon, then that's another part that can help people kind of come out and be like, okay, this is where I'm contributing, and this is where I'm
Yeah.
expecting my partner to contribute. So I just wanted to bring that up. It's that fairness piece is actually one of the attributes that Gallup highlights as one of the, I think it's 6 or 7 core attributes of strong partnerships.
Mm.
And there's a resource that I actually want to, I'll make sure to include in the show notes around great partnerships that Gallup has out there. They've got a whole
Mm.
little website around this. So there's some additional resources, but we wanted to have the conversation, so we're not going to
Yeah.
just rely on that. But I wanted to bring up the fairness
Right.
thing because it spoke to me harmony.
Well, and you were talking while you were talking about that, like finding those people and that division of labor kind of thing. It also sparked in me, and it kind of goes to what Michael was talking about, that like pulling us out of our comfort zones too. Like sometimes we need those people who are going to push us in a place where we're not really that comfortable, but that's where we grow, right? And only those who are our great success partners know how to do that in a safe way. Like Michael was talking about, that psychologically safe place to say, like, I know this is comfortable for you, but let's not stay there. Let's, like, how can we make this bigger? How can we move this forward? And so I love the idea of bringing in all these pieces that you guys gave, because I think these are great ideas for those who are feeling in that stuck and unseen place, to help have their successful partners come back knowing themselves, and then even maybe like we do with strengths, what's worked in the past, who have we worked best with in the past, where have we found that success, so that we could go back to them and be like, I'm feeling stuck, can you help me out, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So some of the people that we often see most stuck are new managers, right? They
Yeah.
get promoted and they've got all the things to do, and sometimes our pride goes before the fall, right? You can be a little bit prideful about having the great new promotion, but then not realizing, oh, I've got a whole lot to do and I'm only one person, and there's so many hours in the day and in the week. So this is a place where we'd love to get some more insight and advice on, if you were coaching a new leader recently promoted, about using their strengths or strengths awareness to find success partners. Is there particular advice that you would give to those individuals that might be a little different than what we were just talking about in terms of sort of peer-to-peer? Is there something you think about in terms of manager to the manager to individual contributor relationship in terms of finding success partners? Michael, I want to come to you with this one first, and Jen, as always, we're going to come to you and get your insights as well.
My input is going, ooh, where do I go with this one? Okay, so for me, what's coming up really strong right now is the need to just go back to coaching that individual leader has to start with self. And Jen touched on it about that self-awareness. I think they really need to be strong in understanding themselves and their talents, because once they do and they're comfortable with the language, they can have more successful. I do the bunny ears because success is different for everybody, but they can be more successful in their communication of what they need. So that's where I would always start with a new manager. Get them super clear. We use this term in Futureers where we go, instead of self-awareness, it's high definition awareness. So you're taking it up a notch. And then the next step is razor sharp alignment. Because that's when I believe you can only go there once you understand self first.
For sure.
And especially if a leader or a new manager is going to be challenged, they may already be feeling a little not as confident as they should be, and so on. So you're kind of setting them up for success if they're able to have more powerful strengths-based conversations with their team.
Yeah. For sure.
Nice. Great way to start us off. Jen Pasquale.
I think, just for the kind of the sake of the conversation, I think where my mind was going was sort of flipping it to the reverse of, not that I wouldn't start with the manager, but if we think for a minute about what is the impact for a team if they're not well led. And so when we look at it in reverse and say, okay, well, what does this look and feel like for that team? It's probably expectations aren't clear. It's probably, guidance isn't clear, milestones are changing, there's maybe some chaos, like all the kinds of things that make it really hard to be successful if you're an individual contributor on that team led by that manager. And so I think, to Michael's point, if we keep that in mind of what does that friction feel like for the team, then one of the easy ways, being not necessarily easy, but one of the kind of straight line ways to help impact that is by making sure the manager is clear with the team about what kind of leader they are, right? Do they know how they lead? Do they know what they're leading from and with, right? So giving them that language and working through them in a coaching environment to really own what, who am I really? How do I want to show up? How do I want my team to feel? What are the skills and the talents that I have that are going to make that possible? And what's going to potentially get in the way? Because if I can tell my team, here's what I know my downfalls can be with you, X and Y and Z, because I know what those talents aren't for me or what they are. Maybe I'm really deliberative. It's number one, and I am going to be hard to work for because I'm never going to want to make a decision. I need to tell my team that this is the trap I can fall into. I give you permission to like understand this about me and have this conversation when we're trying to make a decision and sort of make me make one, right? Like that's something a manager can do, is have that open dialogue about what they're really great at and also where they're going to need to lean on that team to help keep the whole team moving forward. So that, I guess that's my thought on how I would coach that through with the manager.
Yeah.
Jen,
Love
you
that.
said that you said that so much better than what I was going to, because you hit on the thread that I was going to make sure we get covered in this episode. I love that, because what you're really talking about is it's the ultimate humility and vulnerability exercise, right?
Mhm.
A leader coming in, they're sort of expected to have the answers, to know exactly how things are supposed to roll. And what you're talking about is that they've got to be open with their team about like, hey, this is where I really lack and this is where I really excel, and I've got some major gaps. It goes back to that thing that you brought up at the very beginning about known blind spots versus unknown blind spots versus finding the people that can stand in both of those locations.
Mhm.
You said that wonderfully. So I'm not going to go any further, but I just thought it was fantastic the way you called out. It's a vulnerability thing and ties very much into the psychological safety. Hopefully, there's a psychologically safe team that they're coming into so that they can say that. But it is a really great place to start. I loved. Thank you very much for
Well,
sharing.
and I think that's the challenge we find with managers, right? Is they were
Right.
individual contributors. Now they've moved into this new role and they feel like they often take that persona into that role and
Mhm.
don't reinvent based on the needs of the role. And so I think that it's an important thing for managers to really kind of understand and lean into that this is going to look different and you aren't supposed to have it all figured out. You're supposed to, like, you're going to be a little clunky with it. That's okay as long as you're being intentional and open. And if you're not comfortable being super, super vulnerable from the beginning, that's okay. But there's easy ways to like dip your toe into some
Right.
honesty about what your blind spots might be without having to be completely like vulnerable to a level that's uncomfortable. I think there's lots of gradation in that can
Yeah.
be of use to a team, and we don't have to go all in or nothing. I think
Yeah.
we can like go at our own pace, whatever works for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
And Jen,
Yeah.
can I just add a small bit to that? Because I think that's a really powerful point you've made. But I'd like to flip it this time and understand that what if the team, so you're already an individual contributor, and then because I've seen this, and then they get promoted, but the team is resisting the promotion,
Mhm.
and
Oh.
therefore the leader does not have the ability to be vulnerable
Right.
because the team is challenging for in
Mhm.
that regard because you'll hear it. The leader will come in and say, I had a team member say, well, who do you think you are now that you've got this new role? And I think, Jen, what you said earlier about bringing it back to bringing the team to this is where we're going, so how do we get there together, creates that collaboration again.
Mhm.
And it's no longer that you're up there and they're down here. So I love
Yep.
that. I love the way you said that. It was great.
Yeah.
That was exactly where I was going with this, because I was thinking about the fact that when those individual contributors are promoted, they feel like they need to be everything to everyone and do all the things because they're used to doing them. And so they were really great at it. They move forward, and exactly like you said, Michael, those team members, it's like we have to have a deliberate conversation about what it is our roles are. And now, me as your leader, my role as your team leader would be to support you and where we're going together. So I no longer have the doing capability. It's more for you to do and how I can support you. And I think remembering that we don't have to be the ones, we as managers do not have to be the ones to do all the things, be all of the things for everyone, helps us see where those gaps are, where our blind spots may be. And for me, as a high executor, I'm all the time looking for those people who I could surround myself that are different than me. Like Chad, the responsibility or achiever has to kind of be there. Like, I need to have you have something that's similar, that looks and feels similar to my responsibility and achiever, because those are so pivotal to me. But after that, then I want those high relationship builders around me, because they're going to help me with that, like what it is I'm not seeing that the rest of the team is needing.
Yeah,
Or
absolutely.
those high strategic thinkers that are going to help slow the team down to actually think through some of the decisions before everyone's charging forward, right? So those were my little tidbits I wanted to add, Chad, because I just think that's, we so easily can get stuck in that I need to be the leader now, and it means something different than what it actually means. So we feel like we have to be that everything to everyone.
Yeah. It's interesting. One of the points that I came across as I was researching a few things for this episode, and it just might be another sort of way to approach this conversation. You know, we talk a little bit about sort of filling the gaps or filling the blind spots. One of the phrasings that I found really helpful in one of the articles I was reading was, think about it instead of you do this because I can't, think about it as an ad. You know, it's that yes and versus yes but. You know, yes, I do this, but I need you to do this. Instead, think of it more as an ad. So the phrasing I came across was, I bring X to the partnership and my partner adds X. And I think this, you know, this cycles almost all the way back around to the examples that Michael and Jen Pasquale, you were mentioning at the beginning of, you know, I do this and my marketing person adds this, or my ops person adds this, or Michael, you were talking about, was it Kristen who does a lot of the executing? I do this, I do all the research, and my partner does all the executing. So I just think that as leaders, there might be a good way to think about the language you're using, to think about, instead of filling gaps, or you know, especially if we're talking about vulnerability and saying, oh well, I don't do well, no, I just need somebody to add to my capabilities. So
Love that, Chad. I love that, because words create worlds and language is so important. So I
yeah,
love that love that bit of research. Can't wait
yeah,
to see it
yeah.
in the show notes.
Did it look like you had something else you want to add, or something I said sort of sparked an idea? I don't mean to call it your favorite question, but I was like, wait a minute, she noticed something I said, so I don't
Yeah,
want to.
my ideation at work. What I was actually thinking of is, oh, that'd be a really cool exercise, because one of the things I do with teams is we'll do there's a partner exercise, right? So it's defining, you know, it's really rooted in bring a need, but it's about identifying who do I partner with really well, and then what do I bring to someone else as a partner. And what I was thinking when you were talking is how cool it would be to have everybody pair up at the end and then like introduce, you know, like kind of introduce each other as part of this pairing. I was visualizing that and was like, that'd be kind of a fun way to wrap up that exercise, to have everybody, you know, say it out loud and like,
Yeah.
you know, own it, stake the flag in what your value is as a partner, and let, you know, this partner do the same, you know, with you. So that was where I was going in that.
I like it.
Nice. Well, I think that's great that you mentioned it, because that's an activity that obviously leaders can do. I mean, yes, we as strengths coaches can help with that, but if leaders are willing to put in the work and have those conversations, that's a great exercise. I really appreciate you bringing that up, and thank you very much for bearing with me in terms of me calling you out. I saw something happening there. I was like, oh yeah, I could tell a great insight was on the horizon. So, um, this has been a fantastic hour. This hour has flown by. Before we fully wrap up, I want to give each of you an opportunity just to, maybe, are there one or two really key short bullet points that you want to like highlight, or maybe there's something that you wanted to say but didn't quite fit in one of our questions that we asked, that you want to kind of finish out the show with? And Jen P, I'm going to come to you first, and love to hear your couple key takeaways.
I mean, I think from a takeaway perspective, what this has been selfishly very helpful for me in terms of just reminding me how important it is. I'm in a season of finding a lot of business partners, so people to partner with on projects and things like that. And so I haven't been thinking about this lens as much for them as the people that work with me every day. And so I have appreciated just kind of starting to think about, okay, which of the ones out there that I've talked to do I think really is a good fit because they're not just like me, right? So I think that's been
Mhm.
really helpful. The one thing I would add that I was thinking of during one of the sections we were talking is something I often will tell folks that I think plays into our conversation, which is really not being afraid to lean into the ownership. So when I talk about it, it's really about, and I do this with my husband all the time, right? It is being willing to say, let me just ideate for a second. Let me just lean into strategic for a second. I'm gonna lean into restorative for a second and have that partner who understands, okay, you're gonna come with a bunch of problems that you think are problems right now, and then we're gonna weed through it and figure out what actually needs to be acted on. And so I
Yeah.
think that ownership can be really powerful to set the tone for like why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I think Jen, you brought it up earlier where, so I don't, someone doesn't see it as a criticism or they don't see it as a judgment or they don't hear it in some other way. I think the way to get in front of that is to own it and to start
Yep.
and to state it from the very get-go. And so I always encourage folks to get comfortable with that. And that's where I think we really lean into our talents even more when they're just part of our everyday language.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Great takeaway, great add-on. Michael, your last couple thoughts before we wrap.
Oh God, where do I start? Okay, so
Mr.
I'm
Input
like,
over here,
okay,
Mr.
I'm,
Input.
I'm like, my relator wants another hour, guys. Come on. So I'm gonna probably stick with the because the business model that I have is around future fit and sustainability, and you've heard me use that term a couple of times today. I think it's really important in order to sustain a long-term successful partnership, it's to not get complacent. So even in
Yeah.
long-term partnerships, dynamics change, stuff happens, things get in the way, and people may need to dial up or dial down or lean into or not lean into their, the strengths that they may have had. So we could be leaning on each other, on one person too much because yes, they're great at executing, but maybe they're at burnout and we need to check in and go, are you okay? And that's something that we need to be mindful of, I suppose, is to revisit strengths, revisit roles, revisit the contributions over time in order to maintain that alignment. And
Yeah.
I think that will help to sustain the relationship because we're giving each other space to use our talents and we're recognizing where each person is at every time. So it's those touch points along the way of the relationship. Just to cement that. One of my previous roles in jobs in hair and beauty was when we were working with clients, we never got complacent with a client who used to maybe always come in to get a haircut a certain way or a blow dry a certain way. In that regard, we looked at them as if every day they were a new client, and we checked in with them and we asked them, and that maintained a very long-term relationship because they felt seen. Going back to Jen's point, they felt seen, they felt heard each time. Does that make sense? And
Perfect sense.
and just as a final point on that, just to go back onto sustaining and future fit, I think it's really important to never forget that you should rotate your responsibilities based on the current projects that you're working on and the strengths, not just on the relationship, because project needs can change based on what the talents are bringing to each individual project.
Yep.
And I'm just all about this for everybody. Recognize achievements publicly. So,
Yes.
let people know, appreciate them, whether it's your success partner that you're working with all the time, tell them you value them, but tell them why. It could be your maximizer really helped take this project from good to great, or your connectedness really brought the team together on this occasion. So let them know that they're seen, and let them know that they're heard, and let them know that they add value.
Love
Love
those.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are 7 or 8 really great takeaways and all said very succinctly. So I really appreciate that. And I want to be the first to thank you both for spending the hour with us. This has been fantastic. Jen, was there anything else you
Absolutely.
want to say before we wrap?
I think just to remember that success isn't a solo sport. We're a team effort, right? So we need one another. And when we can lean on each other to do what we do best, what they do best, we can go farther together.
Excellent. Well said. So, as our listeners, as you think about and process all the wonderful insights that Michael and Jen Pasquale have shared with us, I'm going to keep encouraging you to keep playing to your strengths, which goes right in line with today's episode. And Jen?
And of course, be uniquely you.
If you enjoyed this episode, we encourage you to like, follow, and subscribe wherever you find your podcasts.